More than 36 House Democrats, including Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, are calling on President Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken to impose conditions on U.S. military aid to Israel amid mounting frustration following the airstrikes on World Central Kitchen workers. The group sent a letter on Friday asking the administration to reconsider a recent decision to authorize an arms package transfer to Israel. The White House did not respond to a request for comment on letter. The move comes as some Biden allies are publicly calling on the president to reevaluate the government's military support of Israel. Here's Senator Chris Coons.
I think we're at the point where President Biden has said, and I have said, and others have said, if Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister, were to order the IDF into Rafah at scale, they were to drop 1,000-pound bombs and send in a battalion to go after Hamas and make no provision for civilians or for humanitarian aid, that I would vote to condition aid to Israel. I've never said that before. I've never been here before.
Joining us now, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. He's a member of the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees. He's also author of the new book entitled Walk, Ride, Paddle, A Life Outside. And we'll get to that in just a moment.
Looks great. Hey, Senator, let me ask you about the balance that you and the president and Republicans, they care about this issue, are having to do right now. One, we don't want the bombings to continue. We don't want another 10,000, 15,000 civilians killed in further fights in Rafah. At the same time, we don't want to send a message to Hamas that they've won. How do we balance those two things?
Joe, it's really tough, and it's a heartbreaking situation. Israel has a right to defend itself against those who would annihilate it: Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. And so the U.S. has always been a partner trying to help Israel defend itself against those external threats. But Palestinians have a right to live, and Palestine has a right to a future of autonomy that was promised them in 1948. So I think the right thing to do now is to in any weaponry to Israel, it should be defensive only. Let's help them replenish their stock of Iron Dome, which can intercept missiles fired at Israel. Let's constrict military aid to defensive weapons only. And second, we have to lean on Israel much more about allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza. The U.S. shouldn't have to be doing dangerous airdrops of aid into Gaza. We shouldn't have to be doing a Rube Goldberg pier construction in the eastern Mediterranean to get aid into Gaza. The way to get aid into Gaza is for Israel to allow more aid to come through the border crossings that are already there. And it's taken way too long for Israel to allow these border crossings to be used the way they should be.
Senator, we want to turn you to a domestic matter. Just minutes ago, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social a video in which he says, explains his position on abortion. He had been sort of teasing this for a week or two that he was going to do that. He is saying that he believes it should be left up to the states. He supports the bans that any state has put forth already. He also says, quote, "I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of Roe v. Wade." So lots of more mixed signals here from the former president. Can we just get your reaction, sir?
Well, he's proud that he ended Roe versus Wade, which was a law that stood for 50 years that allowed women to make their own reproductive choices about pregnancy. And he did more than end Roe versus Wade. The court, in striking down Roe versus Wade, struck down 100 years of precedent that says that the 14th Amendment grants people some autonomous rights to make decisions about their own families. It's not just pregnancy, it's contraceptions, it's in vitro fertilization, it's how you educate your kids. All of those cases were the cases that the court struck down in Dobbs. So, look, he's proud that he stripped rights away from Americans that they've been able to count on for a century. And that shows how these stakes are so high. He's fine with states criminalizing women. He's fine with states giving bounties to those who might report somebody who terminates a pregnancy. Great. You put that out there, and we Democrats and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, we're going to say we believe that women's reproductive freedom should be protected in this country. Where whatever zip code you live in, whatever state you live in, it shouldn't be up to a group of mostly male legislators deciding how to criminalize your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mika, what he just said, really surprised. I thought he'd try to weasel out of it a little bit more than he did. What he just said was he supports, like, Florida's 6-week ban.
Yep.
6-week ban, ban before women know whether they're pregnant or not.
Dangerous.
And bans like Wisconsin had, you know, that 1849 was total ban. I'm not sure if it's still in effect now, but there are, again, crazy, extreme laws that have been passed that Donald Trump just said he supports and he salutes and said, I'm responsible for that.
Yeah, he's proud of it, and Democrats should drive that message home, because for women, this is a matter of life and death, and the men who love them. I mean, these laws, depending on how they differ in different states, just muddle the medical journey that is already a nightmare for women when they're on it, when they have a pregnancy that has complications, or they have questions, or they have a situation that is dire. They're left with the choice of being sterilized, bleeding out, or giving birth to a baby that won't live more than a matter of minutes, and going through the emotional trauma, let alone being sterilized by that. You can thank Donald Trump for that. And Democrats need to make sure that they understand that they got to get the message out across the country, especially to Republican women.
And Senator, can you explain, I know you've seen it in Virginia, how this is a unifying issue for so many people who considered themselves even pro-life before Roe was overturned. They see the extreme laws being passed and said, no, I want no part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Joe and Mika, let me give you the perspective from Virginia. We are the only state in the South that still protects women's rights, essentially in accord with Roe versus Wade, because of state statutes. The surrounding states to our south don't. It's not uncommon for women in Tennessee who get cancer diagnoses to be unclear whether they can take their cancer medicines, because cancer medicines can interrupt a pregnancy. And so they get cancer treatments in Virginia. They come across the border into Virginia to be able to make their own reproductive health care decisions. We're proud of the fact that in Virginia, we're the only state in the South that protects women's rights to make reproductive decisions, but we're deeply dissatisfied that it's come down to this. And in my Senate campaign this year, in the presidential race, and in everything we're going to do forward, we're not going to rest until women in any zip code in this country can make these decisions. And again, it's IVF. I mean, this is what could be more pro-life than the 12 million people that are walking around the planet today whose parents suffered through failed pregnancy after failed pregnancy and then decided to use IVF to build a family. And yet what states are doing and what Republicans are doing, what Donald Trump is proud of, is stripping away legal protections that would protect these families' ability to grow their families as they want.
Senator Kaine, since former President Trump wants to take credit for stacking the Supreme Court and coming out with the Dobbs decision, wouldn't it be wise for Democrats to also say, therefore, to young people, he's taking credit for taking back student debt loan forgiveness, and to blacks and others that he's taking credit for ending affirmative action and other things that this court has done? Because not only has this court turned around the Dobbs decision, this court has turned around affirmative action, student debt loans, and other things that the Biden-Harris campaign are challenged with in terms of those constituents.
Reverend Sharpton, you said it better than I could. I think this court, with the sort of two stolen seats, the blockade of President Obama's nominee, and then the rush job on Justice Coney Barrett after the Republicans had promised, hey, in a presidential year, if there's a vacancy, you got to wait till the presidential election is over to fill the seat. Their manipulation of two seats on the Supreme Court has produced a parade of bad decisions, and Donald Trump is responsible for every last one of them. And we're certainly going to talk about that heavily between now and November.
Want to ask you, Senator, about your book, Walk, Ride, Paddle, A Life Outside. In recent weeks, over a period of several years, you've hiked 559 miles of the Appalachian Trail that crossed Virginia from Harper's Ferry to the Tennessee border, biked 321 miles. It goes on. I just want to ask how you did this with long COVID, and tell us about the book.
Mika, thanks for asking. When I turned 60 in 2018, I was running for re-election. I wanted to mark that milestone and think about aging, but I didn't do it in the election year. So I said, okay, next year I'll do something special. And I just decided to create what I call the Virginia Nature Triathlon, a quest that's kind of a love letter to my state. Hike the whole AT, cycle the whole Blue Ridge Parkway and Skyline Drive, and canoe the whole James River, and learn about my state, myself, and my country along the way. It was a remarkable journey, and I'm happy to share it with folks.
Nice. The new book is entitled Walk, Ride, Paddle, A Life Outside, and it comes out tomorrow. Virginia is for lovers of nature. Senator Tim Kaine, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Great to be with you today.
Take care.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.